is it possible to cut karmic cords without cutting people attached to the cords out of my life? Well, let's talk about what that is. Energy cords are just that, entrails of energy based upon lifetimes and experiences of karmic action that build up, that make those energy connections deeper. The deeper the karma, the thicker that little energy trail or cord, right? So cutting energy doesn't often cut people from your life to begin with, because the best way you can explain this is that light, well, you've all heard the speed of light, and people discuss that in science. We, as human beings, we're experiencing this kind of cosplay, if you will, spiritually, in these very densified forms. Light moves fast, and when it comes into these forms, it densifies, much in the way that morning fog, you can only see it in the morning. It's most sacred in those times before the fog densifies and the sun comes through and all of that. Or think more like perhaps water. When you densify water, it's freezing, you get snow, and then you get blocks of ice everywhere, sheets of ice on the ground. So human karma is densified in the same way. Light tries to give us an experience, but as we try to take it from the human mind into the human formative experiences of cosplay and pretend between this person and that person, it densifies the more we introduce separation to light. So much like rain becomes snow, and then it becomes sheets of ice over the ground, energetically speaking, this is also how these cords work. These energy connections we have with other people can be real light, barely there. Have you ever felt some friends like that or family members like that you can kind of talk to them here and there, and you have a really light relationship, and you haven't had a lot of deep conversations, but you know instinctively that you trust each other, even if you don't have a densified earthly reason why you connect spiritually and why you trust them, right? Or like friends that you've had. I've had some friends that I've had my whole life. Like I have two friends, Laurel and Leanne, that I've had since I was a little girl. And no matter where they are in their life, we can call each other, and we don't do it often. Like really, we rarely talk. But when we do, because these relationships were childhood based, there was no conditions that were placed, there were no judgments that had a chance to densify into the container of our friendship, right? Of the relationships. There was nothing to densify it, no judgment, no heavy belief systems, no pain, right? So the cords are light. Like I love them. They know I love them. I can talk to them once a year or so. Or with Leanne, I talk to her typically at least once a year, maybe twice on a good year. But if something happens to her, I might be on a plane. We don't need density and karma. Like if she needs me right now and she says, I'm sorry, I know you got kids, we got on a plane, I might have to be finding a sitter and doing something. That's how tight we are, right? Do you have any friends and family like that where, karma has not been so painful and dense? Okay, well, you have different karmic cords, and some are light and some are dense. Some they may appear thin, but that thin is flexible and moving. It goes over a long distance. It's stretchy like a rubber band. You can mend problems and bend and move and kind of flex around each other together. But these dense cords, you pull, and if that cord is attached to your heart, and if it's not stretchy and light, it hurts. So energetically speaking, this is just how entanglement works when it comes to light and how it densifies. This is how entanglement works, from the basis of light going into a thought system, those thoughts densifying further into emotions, and emotions densifying into the way that we talk and interact with people, the way that we express those emotions, becomes like this container that we have that makes the relationship very light, very dense, or somewhere in between. So when you're talking about certain familial connections that you want to cut the cord from, the chances of cutting that cord because it's so dense, Cassie, those chances of cutting that cord are, you may as well not even try. Right? You may as well not even try. But what you can do is to look at yourself, to be so busy and content and so, I guess busy isn't really the word, but focus is the word. When you're so completely committed and involved and focused on communion with your own soul, what happens is those cords that you have with certain family members, those dense, thick cords, they lighten up. They kind of like, it's like ice that became a block and now it's melting a little bit. You can feel that melting of the dense energy between you. So I prefer to work at it that way than just going along and cutting cords, because believe me, those cords are there for a reason, and the karma is going to duplicate itself in another human being because of the law of oneness. All of this little interdependent karmic cosplay that we're doing together when we're pretending to have density, and then that becomes a very emotionally difficult situation. Well, that actually doesn't worsen or better itself by you just visualizing in your mind that you're cutting a cord. What actually lightens or densifies the energy between you and another being is you working through your karma by communing with your soul. And your soul's going to say, you know what, this is why you have, the thoughts that became the emotions, that became the words, that became the pain, and, this is why you have that. And then you understand yourself better, why you act and react in certain ways. And then what happens is you get these opportunities to interact with them where they're still kind of at you with that density, right? And as their cords are melting away, they don't like it. Have you ever felt that with family? Once those cords start melting, they feel loss of control, they feel loss of power, and they feel a little bit like, I don't like that, she's not respecting me. You see people say that when they start to feel powerless, they say, you don't respect me. That's a really familial container in soul relationships on earth. You don't respect me, It's like a really big theme in Lionsgate coming up right now in family relationships, with people feeling lack of respect when what's really going on is that they're not supporting another human being in that person really kind of learning to operate interdependently in the container of their connection, right? So this is particular in parental relationships. This is like a really big theme right now with what we're going through collectively. So I'm sure that a lot of us can kind of look at that and look at that one person in your life, that could be more than one, that just says that you don't respect them if you don't live the way they live, and if you don't have the same reactions and actions as they do about things. And they'll say, well, you don't respect me. Here's one. You don't make me feel safe. You don't make me feel blank. But as you are kind of like getting out of their density and enlightening and reinvigorating your own power in your soul, you begin to actually feel a compassion, not a pity, but the first step of that shift in kind of shaving that energy cord is to love them without feeling that anchor of a cord between you and them. You can't anchor in to their pain. You no longer feel this desire to use the anchor between the two of you, you anchoring into their thoughts of you, their judgments of you, their either conscious or subconscious, intentional or unintentional shaming of you, their projections of their own fears onto you, all those things. Like, you can love them without really needing that anchor into that dense energy. Do you see what I mean? You can love them, and you find yourself going into step 1 of a frequency healing with them and an interdependent healthy connection. Step 1 is feeling not pity, but compassion, being able to feel compassionate about the fact that they feel afraid, that they feel alone, that they feel that, whatever it is, like in loving relationships, if you feel someone isn't attracted to you anymore, they're mad at you, or whatever the thing is, right? You can feel compassion for the fact that they feel that way, but you're not going to take it on as a problem that densifies you and that thickens that karmic cord between your soul and theirs, because you want kind of when you think about energy cords with someone you love, you want it light, you want it long and stretchy, and you want it thin but strong enough to hold. So you can envision those kind of things. If you're going to envision something, envision kind of like a moving cord that's long, that has plenty of slack, is still there. And if you need to reel them in, or they need to reel you in, you can give permission for that. But you have plenty of slack to float around in your own space, and yet you're still connected. This energetically is a psychically healthy relationship, psychically, karmically, emotionally, right? So cutting cords is just, it's not going to work. And people don't just go away because you think you've done it. So this is because one of these things that you really need to understand karma and how karma works in order to really start. This is just a frustration I have over some New Age teachers would like, well, cut a cord, just go in there and do a ritual and visualize it snapping. And you know what? Number one, that hurts. It hurts bad, emotionally. And you'll feel it in your soul. Feel it in your soul. Okay. Yeah. So for those of you just joining, we are in a spiritual development Q&A. You can ask anything you want about me or you or anything. And we're talking about the idea of cutting cords. Is that